And a very welcome to the podcast, Christiaan Hofman. How are you today, Christian?
Very good, David. Thank you.
Wonderful. So let's get this started. So where are you right now on planet Earth?
In Texas.
In Texas. Okay, so you have to give more than that. Where in Texas? Texas is quite a big state.
Yeah, for some of people, most of the people don't care, but it's in Temple, Texas. It's right under Austin.
Okay, and if you could give a travel review of your location, if somebody wants to go there on holiday or to live or to work, what would you say is wonderful about the location? Or terrible?
The people are wonderful, and the weather. I mean, if you like sun, it's wonderful. But apart from that, it's pretty flat. And we're in the mid section of Temple, in Texas. But overall, Texas is very beautiful, I would say.
And in terms of temperature wise,
Yes.
make me jealous. So how hot is it at the moment?
No, not today. It's was it 15 degrees Celsius?
Oh, well, only 15. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're going down right now. It's getting
Okay,
cold
only
tomorrow.
15. Oh, for some
Yeah.
people. Okay. So I gave a little introduction about yourself. Can you let the listeners know a little bit more about yourself?
Yes. Uh, let's see. What is interesting to know, though? Not
Anything
only,
you want. Start from the
right,
beginning. Don't leave anything out whatsoever.
right. Well, I always seemed not to be interested too much in the history of what was and looking forward to what is. But what was is to get to know me a little bit is that I've been grown up in the Netherlands for 36 years. So I'm 45 nearly. So it gives you a little bit of an idea of how I did life. And Europe is mostly um, different than Texas in ways of thinking about freedom and everything else, I guess, because everything is changing right now. And I lived with two brothers, so I got two siblings, an older brother and a younger brother. I'm the middle one, so the rebellious one. And you can find it sometimes in my pattern. But I've been to Australia for a year to find out about myself. What can I do and what can't I do? And more over how can I survive? Can I survive by my own? And that brought me to a lot of ideas. I developed a concept, a Sport Naturel concept, as my way of teaching other people to work out with me and doing great things. And um, when I was there, also, you get a more deeper dive into the psychology of things. And I understand now this far that if you learn how to survive, you're not really learn how to thrive. So it's a good asset to have to fall back on, but it's not something that you can use in the
Right.
future to grow. There's a big distinction uh, to make. And this is where it went. I think I opened my mind to different ideas and read a lot of books and come to a different understanding of purpose and meaning. So that's what I wrote a book about in a setting of where I come from. It's a little bit about myself and what I encountered in life, and I wrapped it into a story with I deal with an old Sifu because I did a lot of martial arts and I still do it and also in the past. And the Sifu kind of it's like my soundboard,
And I
and he
mean,
has the wisdom.
why the big move from the Netherlands to Texas? I mean, with your two brothers, I mean, is this a common thing you do? Do you kind of go, okay, brothers, let's go. We're leaving the Netherlands. We're going to Australia. Okay, let's forget about
No,
Australia. Let's go to
no,
Texas.
no, 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 nothing like no. My brothers, no, they maybe I sound make it sound off, but my brothers still are in the Netherlands. They come to visit here every now and then. But I know I do everything alone in that way. But I met my wife in Memphis, Tennessee. I like Elvis Presley, and I was a coach for a singer for a while, for a couple of years. And we traveled here, and I saw her in the audience, or she saw me. So that's how we.
And love at first sight.
Well, I was busy with working, and I was focused. If I work, I focus on things. So she
Right.
said to me, she came to me, she's like, "Can I have a scarf?" Because Elvis Presley put those scarves in the audience. And I was the guy who hands the scarves over to him. And I said, no, you can't. You have to get it from Elvis, you know?
Okay.
So that was my first contact. I was focused. And the funny thing is that she's a redhead, natural one. And when I saw her, we took a picture. And the next day I saw her again and I asked her, hey, did you go to a hairstylist? She asked me why. I said, I thought you were a blonde yesterday. So I didn't pay attention too much. I was not busy with it. It says something about the focus, I guess, when I'm doing things. But yeah, I
And the
came to like it a
redhead, I
lot.
mean, has she any Irish blood with her being the redhead?
I yeah, I asked her, and I don't think there's much Irish blood in there. I think her family's from Czechia.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. So
Czech.
there's no Irish blood. Well, maybe they might have Irish blood from many years ago. Who knows?
Maybe so. Maybe so.
We'll have to find out. So what is this about then? Sport Natural. So explain the whole process. So what's it all about?
Yeah. So I'm easily not bored, but if it lacks creativity, I get sidetracked. So when I went to the fitness, well, we go to fitness school with my parents, they said like, "Hey, come with us. You need some exercise. You're doing soccer and everything. Build your muscles a little bit and become stronger." So I was interested in that, and when I was 16, I was doing that all the machines. And after a week or two, I was like, "Okay, I did all the machines right now. Now what?" Well, you get stronger. That didn't really connect to me well. I didn't really care much for it, and I didn't want to be bulky. I wanted to be fast, nimble. What you use for soccer. It's not American football. So in that regard, I started to search for different ways of doing things, and of course, martial arts was always in the picture, and always doing that. And I like soccer a lot. So the playfulness of working out, and there's playfulness in fighting, in sparring with someone else, and also in a scrimmage with doing soccer. So what I teach now is when you come to me and train with us, we do more than just lifting weight or with a machine. We most of the time we are in parks. We do a little bit of fighting, do water training. We just did one on Sunday, the cold water training, and yeah, we use weights, but also techniques, jumping, balancing, whatnot. Yeah, what you can imagine, probably we do it. We also play sports. We do basketball. So it's not like dual cardio. We use it to run behind the ball or controlling a ball, throwing a ball, do everything. What makes it more creative and spontaneous and see how good you are at it. So you're training your capacity to do things, capabilities. So that's what I'm focusing on, capability.
And the soccer part of it as well. I mean, you said you're a big fan of soccer. So who's your team? I mean, back in the Netherlands, or have any team in the USA?
No, it wasn't back in the Netherlands. I always liked the playing of the style of Ajax and Heerenveen. I lived there for a while. It's in Friesland. So I like the style of those teams, but I come from Groningen. And of course, I've got a heart for Groningen too. They're a little bit
Okay.
more like Feyenoord, like a little bit robuster, like working hard, you know?
Right. The underdog.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, more like the English style, I guess.
That's it, the underdog. We love the underdog. So, in relation to this training that you mentioned, like, you do some cold water training, you implement other like soccer, martial arts, outdoor specific. I mean, is there any age limit to this? I mean, is there any restrictions in actually starting this type of training?
I did this with kids too, but you have to be very careful, especially in America. The liability. I mean, if someone breaks a fingernail, I'm liable.
Right.
So if you pair a little bit of 18 years old with a 12-year-old, you're going to have problems.
Yeah.
So separating those things um, is what I did most of the time in the Netherlands. I'm only I do personal training here with kids, not necessarily in groups.
And in relation to you mentioned that, you've done counseling, teaching martial arts and so on. Um, what type of counseling? What's the experience and background with that? And do you still continue with that as well?
I just No, I broke with it for a couple of reasons. Mainly because I was not in line with the whole setting and the ideas of what the company was doing. But I worked with kids, troubled teenagers, and I always kind of did that in my university period. You have to choose a certain way of what you want to do as a minor and such. And I always ended up with the troubled teenagers. And that's what I became my job here in America. And I was not expecting the amount of drugs that 12, 13, 14 years old already take here in the Netherlands. I was not, yeah, I didn't have that experience, but yeah, all the problems that come from it, try to give them back a certain responsibility, but also self-esteem and some confidence because a lot of people lose that in the process. And that's why there's a lot of concept of that in my psychological model that I designed.
So give us more information about the psychological model. I mean, explain it to the world.
Yes, yeah. Well, if I just hold it up, that will not be enough for the people that are listening to it. So that's a little bit uh, nothing to do. But yeah, everything starts from the core that I think is the thoughts, your words go to feelings and emotions. And where your thoughts pull things from most of the time is from your beliefs in a certain mood and you find yourself in and the opinions that you hold in your head. So with that, it goes everywhere in the facets of your psychological processes or as in intellectual faculties. Um, so if you could, the perception, your imagination, the memory, intuition, and the will you have is all connected to those thoughts and the feelings. So the senses the five senses that we have bring in all the information, but we filter it out with our biases. So we have biases in every process um, of our psychology. So if you look at the cognition that we have, it's full of bias. And the product of cognition at work, is how I call it, is also full of biases. So the process of your cognition is your self-conception and the self-definition. So how do you show yourself to someone else, and how are you really for yourself? And you can, if you go a little bit deeper, you come into the self-confidence, your self-worth, and your self-esteem. That becomes important because that is determined by a lot of factors, and you can train those things with most of the time with habits and routines. So it is an important thing to understand. Uh, in that way, my model is it's more a defense mechanism model. So the defense mechanism of emotions, feelings, and ego. Those are the three things that protect you.
Right.
And if you don't control them, they control you. So it's very important to understand what is ego and what is your identity. Now, most of the time, it's one. You cannot separate it. Even if we think we cannot really separate it because it's so attached. It's like the shadow that you have, but close.
Yeah.
So to become a little bit aware of that difference, we need to use a certain awareness and also how we talk to ourselves. And that becomes very interesting because I always see myself as I'm very self-critical, and I thought it was a good aspect because it propels me in certain ways. But I come to understand more now. It's not the right term. It's not self-critical. It's more self-cynical.
Right.
Um, yeah, and that big difference because if you people close to me, if the closer you get, the more you get a whiff of the critical aspect of how I talk to myself. Because I'm going to talk to you in a certain way. I'm going to push you in the same way how I push myself. And that's not always nice. Certainly, if I do it to someone else, I have that little layer of civility um, when I correspond with someone else.
Right.
But when you correspond with yourself, that little layer of civility is gone, right? You don't talk nice to yourself. You use harsh words. You say, "Come on, asshole, get this done,"
Yeah.
or something like, oh,
Yeah.
whatever. And so that is detrimental to our self-esteem, but also eventually self-confidence and our self-respect. So self-respect is the same as self-worth that we have. And self-worth is how we have positive values, the honesty that we are using to ourselves, mainly, the humility, dignity, yeah, the morals and integrity that we hold. And if that is not strong, it shoots out to our self-esteem. Now, our self esteem is grown by experiences and interactions with someone else and ourselves.
Right.
Now, you have to imagine that you have habits of talking to yourself, but also habits in general that you put down for yourself. Now, with your habits, let's say you have a habit of working out 4 days a week. Oh, that's great. So you build some confidence from that, and from confidence comes a certain trust, uh, because confidence comes from fidere, it's Latin, and it says trust. And breaking routines. Let's say in the beginning of January, I'm starting a new routine. I'm going to work out now. I'm going to lose weight. But the moment you're going to break it, let's say in February, most people break it, then it erodes your confidence, that trust in yourself, and it erodes your self-esteem also. So they are connected to each other. And uh, if you have self-confidence, it determines how well you can control aspects of your own life. So if you don't have much of that self-confidence, uh, you're going to have more problems and issues going on. So you want that awareness um, by not trusting your inner thoughts. Just in general, you have to challenge them a little bit. Now, that critical part, the self-critical part, might become important in that facet because you want to challenge your inner thoughts. And how you do that, you have to be critical of your thoughts. So it's a must have to have critical thoughts, but also in a certain way that it's still valuable to you. You cannot do it by or overdo it by being rough to yourself and with a whip on the back. That's not the way. Now, all those little facets in that, if you cannot be aware of that difference of the, um, let's say, a critical part and the cynical part, this is where we go off in the deep end. So self-esteem is grown by experience and interactions. So if I'm good to you, you are good to me. If I'm liked well by other people, I'm growing myself. In the same time, if I'm hitting myself down with my own critical and self-criticalness of it, I'm getting a net zero. And eventually I'm bringing it down if I'm not in contact with other people anymore because I'm
Right.
getting self-esteem from it. And that's what we see more now. People do a lot of things indoors, and certainly with COVID period, we all were like social distancing, and we are in our own houses, and this is where we pull ourselves down, and yeah, it's not a good thing. That's why I do groups lessons and group training, and always say to the people that come to me, if you want to lose weight, you have to start with your mental fat, uh, because
Your
that
mental
has
mental fat, is it?
mental fat. Yeah,
Okay, what is
yeah.
that?
Well, just what I said. It's not necessarily about exercising and diet. It's more about your psychology.
Right.
And if you can't get that straight, you're gonna fail over and over and over again. So in my way, I'm saying 80% of losing weight is psychology, 10% is diet, and the other 10% is exercising. So in that way, it is important to do exercise and of course eat well. But on the other hand, if you don't have your psychology right, whatever you're gonna do, you're gonna work against you,
Yeah.
or you're gonna give up, and then you have that cycle of giving up all the time, and you grow feelings from it, and that determines eventually your confidence again and your self-esteem, so your self-trust in that way. Uh, so yeah, that's mostly what I'm busy with in that regard.
So, Christian, in relation
Mm.
to, say, you know, being cynical,
Yeah.
as an individual or self-cynical, where does all that stem from? So is it years and years and years and years of a negative mindset that you've been treated like a piece of dirt? You've been let down by society, that, you went for the interview and you never got a response. Your girlfriend or boyfriend or partner dumped you. They ghosted you. So all of these
Yeah.
experiences through life has kind of gotten to that stage where, oh, okay, here's another one. Okay, they're going to leave me next week, or this is not going to happen, or that. Is that how it kind of stems, like from the beginning?
Yeah. Well, what you say is your negative inner voices, the inner cynic, it compares your weaknesses with most of the time other people's strengths. So the comparing factor in this is also a factor that we need because we need to know who we are, where we are, and what we are in our circumstances, in our situation. We do this by comparing. But if we over compare on the silly things, on someone else's strength with my weakness, we're doing something wrong. And if we are not aware of that again, there you go. You're going to trigger something or you're going to create something. You become more critical and cynical in that way. So the cynical part is a defense mechanism. Basically, it's saying like, hey, we want to protect ourselves, and we also want to fight in a way. Um, the skeptical tendency is more prominent when one has a different perspective on reality. So often showcasing a form of questioning that leans towards skepticism, but it's not something that is an attachment to an identity. So you question your reality, or you question the reality of someone else, but you're open to understand the principles of it and to change your mind. If you are cynical, however, you're not doing that anymore, right? So that's already a little bit of step further. Uh, so how can you say that better? Cynical, and I got it somewhere here. Let me see. Cynicism is a functional attribute of hurt feeling, protected and backed up by our defense mechanism.
That's me, Christian. That's me.
I hope not. I hope not.
That's me, totally. You've said it. That's a session over. Thank you. I'll send you your money tomorrow. No.
Right. So, and the difference is the skeptic is someone who's opposed to believing something until it's definitely proven, and the cynic is someone who refuses to believe. And a
Right.
pessimist in that regard is someone who is giving up on believing. So that's
Okay. That's me. Everything. You've cured me. I can now move on. So, but
right.
I mean, is hope lost for these individuals? I mean, the skeptic. I know we spoke about this in terms of, like, any kind of system that you might have to kind of educate individuals, or books you may have written, but how? I mean, other than calling them assholes and getting them out of the system of being like a cynic or being pessimistic. I mean, what is the hope for these individuals? How do you shape them to wake them, if you know what I'm trying to get at?
Right. Well, this is a interesting factor. That's why I see myself as nearly as a jester, or I like to poke. I'm the middle child, right? So I'm teasing the brothers,
Right,
and I think in that way it's not a good way because I try to control the situation and try to protect myself by controlling others. So it's a negative aspect of it. The positive aspect is that I understand others in a certain way, and I try to go deep very fastly because I try to push the buttons like, okay, if you have something problem here, I will push it,
right,
and then see if you become resilient or not. Now the same thing is if someone uh, does something, wants to lose fat, or they wants to change their mindset, and they ask me those questions, or they want to work with me, uh, I am inclined to, or I will at some point push some buttons because there are problems in ourselves that we need to conquer, and we need to get hardened a little bit. We cannot be overindulgence in our own pain or sympathy or whatever we want from someone else. We need to have a little bit of resilience to um, the outside world, right? So if you're being called out, it should it may hurt a little bit, but it's not the cue to disengage anymore. This is the cue to engage. Like, okay, where does hurt come from? What do I need to be doing here?
Yeah.
Because it's not, you should not be hurt by someone else, right? If you're strong enough, if you have confidence and self-worth and your self-esteem is great, it doesn't matter what someone else tells you or says to you. So first of all, you need a little bit of a callus in that, and that callus is trained by someone else, by your environment. Remember that what I said before, your self-confidence is great by your abilities, but your self-esteem is created by the interactions that you have.
Yes.
So in that interaction, you need it to build that self-esteem. And if you go it out of the way all the time, you basically you hurt yourself and become weaker and weaker. And eventually it goes a little bit woke, I guess,
Right.
to a part that you are not used to anything anymore. And you call out everybody who is, hey, you hurt me,
Everybody
you're a
else is the
bully.
problem, but not you.
Yes, yes. And
Okay.
you definitely don't want to end up there.
So, Christian, how then? So, give me an example. How does Christian push the buttons? I mean, if I was to come to you now, right, and we're doing our session
Right,
and we're
right.
getting there, and you're kind of like, we're on the fifth week as an example, and you're like, this
Yeah,
guy is really annoying me. It's time to poke the bear. So you're poking the bear. So Dave the bear has been poked. So what do you do if anybody's listening to this and they're needing a kick up the ass? What does
yeah.
Christian do?
Well, it depends, right? Because I heard you saying like, "Hey, that is me," self cynical. And why do you call yourself self cynical?
To me specifically,
Yeah.
you're going to poke the bear now. This is what you're doing. Any listeners here
Oh,
that can't
yes.
see this, he's poking the bear. I'm going to go, how dare you say that? How dare you? And I'm going to be
Right.
woke now. I'm going to storm off this right now. I've had enough of you. No, generally, I'm going to play along. So I would say, okay, self-cynical generally because I've been let down a few times over my lifespan.
So let down, you had an expectation of life.
I had an expectation of individuals who I trusted. And because of that, this is getting really deep now. No tears, anybody listening? No tears. So I had expectations, and I think it was my fault because I should have reducing my expectations, not expecting anything wonderful from these individuals, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, well, of course. And so you try to place trust at someone that you think it was trustworthy, and then
Yes.
it wasn't. You felt something from it, and that made you eventually cynical because of it repeated.
Yeah, because he threw it back in my face. So generally what it was is that you had you had one, not say one after another, I sound like a sad individual here, but just generally you reached out, you helped somebody, you kind of looked after them, and then it was thrown back at your face. So you kind of went, okay, and you had time to heal, and then you did it again, and then similar things had happened, and then it's kind of like a hamster wheel.
Right. And why did you try to help? Why did you want to help the person in the first place?
Because I thought they needed help. They asked for help. So because they asked for help, I thought I'll be a good person in my own perception, my own mind, looking in the mirror. I'm a good person.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
I'm a
There you
good
go.
person. And then I said,
Yeah.
I'm going to help them. But after a while, they didn't want that help, Christian. They didn't want it at
Right.
all.
So the people put an expectation on you,
Yes.
right? And if we are a little bit insecure about certain things, we it's difficult to say, okay, I don't want to help you in this regard, or I don't have time, or I don't want to be busy with this. It's very hard to do, especially if we are in need of something. So if we need to build our own self-esteem, we tend to help everybody. You can see that in people working with, especially kindergarten teachers, because they want to be very useful and they want to be helpful with people that are in need of your help. And you see that with the elderly too, and in hospitals. There's a lot of people that are um, nurturing, and they say, "Oh, I'm very caring." Well, you do that for certain reasons. So if we understand why we do things and why we're not doing things, we come closer to, we cannot have an expectation of a certain outcome because that's just a projection of what we want.
Yeah.
So if you have your wants straight, you cannot really be that disappointed in a certain outcome. You can for a second, it's like, oh, I didn't expect that. Okay, change my expectation, move along. And we tend to be hurt by it. And especially if it happens another time, which should be an eye opener to ourselves, like, okay, now it happens twice to me, something's wrong with me, right? It's not the other.
Yes.
Uh, yeah. But we tend to forget that a little bit. And eventually, if we don't get the feedback, we can wallow in it and become more cynical in our approach to other people. If I ask your help right now, it's like, okay, who's this guy?
Yeah.
What
Not a
can I
chance.
expect?
Not a chance, Christian.
No,
Not
you
a
seem very
chance.
caring, and a lot of people are, and which
Yeah.
is great. People are
Mm.
very nice to each other most of the times, but people are selfish.
Yeah.
So if you understand people are selfish, okay, I'll help you in your selfish need for my selfish reason, then great. But you cannot expect, when you help, you can never expect something back. That's not helping. That is helping yourself. Right. So if you really truly want to help, you cannot be disappointed if you're given your help and you didn't get anything back in return
Yes.
because you agreed to help. It's
Yes.
like you said yes to it. So yeah. So this
You've
is
cured me.
kind of no, but this is a little bit of what I do. Like
Yes.
I'm maybe a very how do you say that? Uh, straight up. What's the? I now mix the Dutch word for it.
You're
Yeah,
no
straight up.
nonsense. You're no nonsense. Just
Maybe so.
straight to the point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not to hurt, but it sometimes might.
So, um, if an individual is having, say, problems with self-esteem or we mentioned self-confidence, and they've encountered, you know, examples that I've mentioned previously, they've been let down, whether it be for a job or whatever it is. Um, how do they move on? So do they kind of just accept it as part of life, move on, and just learn from the experience?
Yeah,
Or
sometimes it's a practice indeed. So if the practice of self-compassion, yeah, if everybody makes mistakes, you have to understand that. Now we all know that, but we don't act like it. So the negative thoughts, we have to remind ourselves of our own achievements that we did have in life, the positive ones. And you have great qualities. I mean,
oh,
you
stop
have a
it
great
now, stop
great
it.
listening quality, and
That's
you
it.
are able to reflect on yourself. Some people don't have that. It's already a quality. You can think, okay, that brings me certain things in life. Hey, I'm talking with you right now. So we have to stand still by that little things that we are doing right, and convince ourselves and repeat ourselves um, from the how do you say that, the compassion that we create with those achievements. That's what we have to focus on, I guess. Yeah.
Do you think there's too much sensitivity? I know we mentioned it, well, kind of briefly about the woke type of thing, but irrelevant of that, do you, especially in your own experience working with clients, do you think there's a lot of it out there where it's like, no, it's your fault. No, it's you did this, you did that. And there's no
Yeah.
people are not actually taking responsibility for their own actions. Actually, a pal of mine, he's very funny. He would say, like, he'd have this kind of, he'd mimic some people that would kind of go a bit nuts. They kind of go, oh, I remember you did this and you did that. And they storm off. And these would be adults and they wouldn't have the kind of they wouldn't be able to have a conversation to
Hmm.
resolve any problem or any situation. So my first part of my question is, in your own experience and your own work, do you see this more often now? And the second part of the question is, how do you manage that? If for any known reason somebody has stormed off, they've gotten upset, they're sensitive of what you've said, how do you deal with those?
Yeah, of course, it depends on the bond I have with another person. I don't really mind when people storm off. I don't necessarily reflect that on me. Depends if you're getting closer to me, so more family or friend like, then it becomes a different reflection. First, I ask myself, do I need to do this? Do I need to say this? Do I need to be creating awareness in someone else? What do I get from it? And most of the time, if I want to do that, I want to have a certain baseline. I was like, hey, but this is the information that is readily available for everybody. Why don't we put those the information together, and then let's see where it all drops. If you cannot do that because they don't want to hear the information, then it's not a conversation. And I remind myself, okay, I'm not in a conversation. This is just a dialogue with someone, what I try to have, but it's not. So it's a monologue that someone is trying to have with me. And I just have to sit there and shake my head. Yes, okay, go on, and I will listen. If I'm in that situation, if I make that distinction, then I have to switch to that mode. Like, okay, go on, I will listen to your monologue. So I'm not taking it to myself.
Okay.
And that is, I'm still struggling with that, by the way. It doesn't come natural or easy to me because I have the tendency to create awareness like, hey, but can we not have common ground? I have to let that go. There is no common ground. There's a monologue, someone wants to vent, and I have to let that go. And the more that people can vent with you, the more they trust you, and eventually they are trusting enough to listen to some information that you are able to share or want to share. So,
And is
uh,
it best like to having a cooling off period as well with a lot of this stuff?
yeah, this is me, right? This is my critical sense. Cooling off period for me is I'm not good enough yet to do it on the spot.
Okay.
I always want to be able to be capable in the moment. And if I can't, yes, sure, that's a great tool. Uh, but I try to get in the conversation a person as fast as I can, capable to still engage.
Right.
So,
And what is a tool for that? I mean, I know you mentioned there you know you're not able kind of at the moment to really do that. But what is a
yeah,
good tool that if you are confronted by
yeah.
somebody and they're in your face or they're not happy or they're angry, what is a good tool to kind of go, as you said, you just sit there kind of in shock or you stand there in shock and just, let the fan blow in your face. You know what I mean? And be the better guy, be the better woman.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, I've a couple of things, I guess, in that thing, being the better guy or woman, is that uh, because of my the martial arts, I feel secure in myself. If something is very like emotional or maybe a little bit violent, violently to me, screaming is violent to me.
Right.
I get a little bit of a calm down because I'm not here to yell at you.
Okay.
But if you want to fight, okay, because I like fighting. I like to rumble around with you. So if you want to do that, go ahead, because I will
Okay.
have fun with that. So I have that tendency is like, hey, and someone maybe my brothers know, it's like, hey, we don't do it to each other because we all like to do that, and it doesn't always end well or nicely. So with that in mind, I don't want to take it there, but I'm willing to do it. And that willingness has a form of strength to it, but also a certain confidence to it that brings emotion a little bit down. Now, the form matters. So if you talk or someone is talking to you, you want to stay away from critiquing and using sarcasm. You can use humor. Maybe your own opinions can be offending someone else, but if you use a little bit of humor or facts, you can deliver with consideration and certain empathy that you can show in your words or supportive tone with a certain respect. Most of the times, it's you can de-escalate it very quickly, and also your intent. If you have a constructive criticism, if that is my intent, then hopefully someone else can feel that intent. But if I want to be destructive, well, someone will feel that too. So the outcome is eventually what you're going for. And if the outcome, my outcome, because my intent is different, is can range from improvement and positive growth, because that's what I'm pushing for. But sometimes my outcome in someone else is defensiveness. Someone became defensive. So I did something wrong in that regard. I can first say like, hey, you don't have to be defensive, but I did something wrong because I pushed someone in a certain situation. And that can lead to traumas or damage relationships. So you want to be a little bit aware. I'm not saying like you can say whatever you want and someone has to take it. I mean, I feel always responsible in a conversation, uh, but to a certain extent. I'm not responsible for a meltdown.
And you mentioned there the martial arts there again. Do you think martial arts is a good discipline for anybody who kind of wants to be disciplined in general in life? I mean, how long were you studying the martial arts for, if you don't mind me asking?
When I was 4, I started with karate, and I did all different sorts of styles, and I ended up with Wing Chun. I've been in Hong Kong for a while for that too. Uh, that fits me because I like the techniques. I like to manipulate a little bit. I like also the ground form of it because now you are more rolling around. It's also a fun way, but it hurts the knees and the ears and all the other things. So I try to stay away because I need to be functional in my other in
Yeah.
soccer playing and everything else. So stand up fighting. You say discipline. I don't think you can get discipline from martial arts. I don't think you can get discipline from exercising. I think discipline is something, a byproduct of something that you like. Like I don't have to tell a bodybuilder to be disciplined to eat a lot of, I don't know, steaks or to go to the gym and lift weights. I mean, that's something that he loves to do. So it's an attribute of what he likes to do. It's a byproduct. So most of the time, discipline is a byproduct of people doing something that they really like. And that's why the Sport Naturel principle of working out is something more likable than just a dull, how do you say that? Doing it over and over the same things.
Monotonous, just constantly monotonous.
Monotonous.
Yeah.
Yeah, they say, oh, it's consistency. Yeah, well, consistency can also be very dull.
It is, I mean, do you ever look back? Do you think that if the 4-year-old Christian didn't do martial arts or didn't have
Hmm.
other kind of sports or whatever, that you would be different today? Do you think this game kind of gave you a grounding?
Oh, that's so difficult. That's so difficult. There's a grounding of I know what I'm capable of.
Right.
The capability in a lot of, and I've seen it. I mean, I taught martial arts too, and what I saw is that some people were like 16, 17 years old. They were always gaming, and all of a sudden they do a couple of lessons and they feel like Bruce Lee, you know.
Yes.
So it's that false confidence is certainly there, and you see that in a lot of disciplines coming back. So you have to practice that a little bit. I did it with fighting. I fought a couple of times in Hong Kong too. So there's feedback that you need to undescribe your self-confidence. And that's why you don't want to fight with people in actually actively doing MMA. I mean, those are machines, you know?
Yeah.
You don't think like, oh, I'm going to just ridicule him a little bit and see how far I can push it.
Yeah.
And it's not a good idea because
No.
they're trained machines.
Yeah.
So the difference is in that is they have their confidence, and if they have bravado, maybe you guy McGregor, Conor
Oh yeah.
McGregor, he has the bravado, and it's great to watch on television. I mean, it makes awesome TV, uh, but it can hurt your self-esteem a lot when you are knocked down like a couple of times in a row. I mean, that's not too good for it. So you want to base yourself with a certain humility because there's always someone stronger than you. In time, there always will be faster, better than you. So you have to take your position. With that said, I do feel like in my position, I I'm not afraid to engage, and that's the best thing I think that you can have practicing martial arts.
That's good. Just, you always hear parents, even when I was younger, my dad would always say, get them off to do like a discipline like boxing or judo or karate or something like that, and that'll give a good foundation for later on in life. No, we're just interested to just listen to you because it'd be just interested to see how if you ever thought about that late at night when you're looking at the ceiling, wondering what would have I had been if I hadn't gone to Hong Kong or had done training or the way
Yeah.
your path of your life kind of changes. So in relation to that, then. what about like finding purpose? When you hear this statement all the time about finding purpose, what
Yeah.
what do you, in your own opinion, is finding purpose? Are we talking about like, you want to be a like a bus driver or a pilot, or you want to save the planet from environmental disasters? What is a purpose, or is it specific to every individual what they want out of life?
I think so. What you are naming are goals. You can have goal setting, but it doesn't mean it's a purpose. So there's a difference there. And if we can say if we push the goal further away, uh, let's say to end uh, all wars on Earth, that's a very far away goal, I guess. You can make it a purpose in your mind, but it's still a goal. A purpose is again a byproduct, and you're going to understand the byproduct products of you when you are doing. The awareness can only grow when you are actively sitting back to become a little bit mindful. And some people do that with taking an ice bath or sitting in the sauna or driving to work. You have always your moment when you become eventually highly aware in an alpha state of whatever you want to be it. Um, so if you are doing what you really like, so yeah, from your instinct, you feed your feelings that determines your will, and you set your expectations with that. Now, you're testing your expectations. If it fails, you get a pain point, you start over again. If you have a pleasure from it, a pain and a pleasure, if you think, okay, this works, then you can, by setting that goal, you can grow to inspiration, because inspiration comes from the inside. And from inspiration, you create certain meaning. And from meaning, you get a byproduct, purpose. And that creates happiness. It's also a byproduct. So you cannot actively shoot, I want to be happy. So it's also a byproduct of doing.
I'm just nosing here, Christian, just behind,
Sure.
I think in your left shoulder. Yeah, is your left shoulder? Yeah. Your book, To Meet Yourself, Think for Yourself. Do you want to take it
Yeah.
out just to show the camera? Um, so firstly, where can you buy this? And secondly, give an overview of what it's all about.
Yeah, you can buy it on Amazon, Kindle, or like what I have. And it's that story. It's like you can say it's a personal self-help book or something, but this is the model is in it, how I teach it. And but I let an old Sifu basically tell the story. He comes with certain lessons or the questions that I had in my life, and I solved for a certain way. I let the Sifu tell me those things in the story, in the narrative. Um, yeah, I wanted to write something in a certain perspective, when it's conveyed easy than just dry chapter by chapter of like this is chapter goal or the senses or the comfort zone or competing commitments. It's all dry stuff. So I wanted to put it in a certain form, and I just included biography of my life in it. So if you read it, you understand where I come from and what I'm busy with. And yeah,
How long did that take you to write? What
oh
was
my
the book
goodness,
process for somebody who is wanting to undertake writing a book? So what was the
yeah,
process for that?
I never wanted to write a book. Actually, I started by wanting to put a psychology from 100 years to put it on one sheet, like a one A4. That's how we call it, a letter. And it's very difficult. So I did 6 years of research into this, and the last 2 years were writing actually the book. Of course, I wrote little parts, but I wasn't busy with writing a book, so I used all those parts and I implemented in the book. So my epiphanies and the things that I've learned are in the story. But yes, it took me in total with because you have to do the research for it, so some 8 years.
Wow, well done you. It's A great credit to yourself. I'm actually being nosy on your website here. So I'm on
Cool.
sportnatural.com and very nice website. You have a subscribe with an email. So if
Yeah.
somebody was subscribing, what happens with that? Are they going to be bombarded with
No, not at
spam
all.
or what happens?
No, I'm not that way. I don't like that either. No, no, I'm not very commercial. And a lot of people would work with me says like, "Hey man, you have to do this ads, you have to do," and I don't like that. So I keep it very base and normal. So when you put your email address in there, you can become part of my newsletter, and that is every 2 or 3 weeks that it comes out with a yeah different epiphanies. It can be about of course, the psychology of these things, diets, food related, like what is good for you, what not so good for you, products that I use, but also workout models and hey, what to do, or sometimes what not to do. So it's pretty all around, but it keeps us busy in our lives. And yeah, I try to do it every 2 3 weeks. To it's a longer form content. It's not like a 5 minute read. It's a little bit longer.
And in terms of the courses that you do, I mean, is it generally everything's in person, or do you do a lot of stuff on Zoom as well?
No, I'm busy at the moment to write a course around this model because people ask me, okay, but now what? Well, yeah, can you teach this? Yeah, I can, but I have to put it in the course. So when the course comes out, I will do Zoom calls. And if you are around, or even not that around, I try to visit the people that I work with and yeah, to actively be involved in their life. And if I do something, I try to do it the best I can with the 100% availability that I can deliver.
No, that's
So
brilliant. I mean, the if anybody's listening to this, the Sport Natural, which is sportnaturel.com. There's the information there for to meet yourself, think for yourself, which is the bestseller from Christian. There's more information there down the bottom. You can subscribe, and then it has the if you want the information self-propelling way, choose the Sport Natural Method planner. So there's lots of information there, and best way to get in touch with you, Christian, yourself, is it? Are you on the LinkedIn's, on the Facebooks, all this type of stuff, or
yep,
is via
yep.
the website the best way?
Our website is great, but I am on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook and X. So I'm pretty out there. I try to post on those platforms every day or every other day. Like depends of my creativity.
You're pushing buttons all the time.
I do,
Pushing buttons. So thanks so
yeah.
much, Christiaan Hofman, for chatting with me today on the Wellbeing podcast. The podcast will be released very soon. So thanks very much, Christiaan.
Thank you very nice. Thank you very well for your awesome interview. Very nicely done. And
No,
I
not
think
at all. It's you guys are the expert. I can't do this without yourselves. So thanks so much.